I call it building the dream. So it's like, we're going to go through discovery. We're going to help them see what the future looks like working with us. And we're going to ask some questions. We're going to plant some seeds. We're going to qualify them. We're going to go through a process, and that's going to look different, like you said, based on the business, based on the vertical. But if I'm going to ask them a lot of questions, I'm going to let them know that too. Hey, I've got a lot of questions to ask you, not because I want to interrogate you, but because we want to make sure if we do this project for you that we hit all of these checkpoints along the way. And then it's crafting, okay, what are those things?
Drew Norton is a former sales leader who generated millions in revenue and mentored over 100 reps.
Today, he helps businesses attract top talent, strengthen their sales teams, and build organizations that confidently scale.
Drew Norton, welcome to the Sideshed podcast.
Matt, super excited to be with you today. Thanks for having me on.
A fellow podcaster by the setup.
Yeah. Do some podcasting myself. So
That's awesome. Your podcast is The Everyday Leader.
Yes, it is. We just hitting our year mark this week on our podcast. It's been a ton of fun.
That's great. Do you want to give us a bit of a rundown as to who you guys are and what you do and what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, so I go by the Everyday Sales Leader, and the podcast I co-host is called The Everyday Leader. So for me, I want to change the way the world sees sales and leadership, and kind of the two things I like to probably talk about the most. So I do business coaching and sales training primarily, and then on our podcast we focus a lot on helping people live like leaders. So how do you become a leader regardless of your position or title? And I just love talking about those two things with business owners, leadership and sales. I feel like it drives everything.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think the fish rots from the head down, so the saying goes. So leadership's kind of the one thing that you really need to nail when you start leading team members and growing an organization. And I think like sales typically is like, whether you realize it or not, everyone, if you're running a business, you're in a sales job. So whether you like sales, inverted commas, or not, like at the end of the day, you just got to get good at it.
Yeah, one of my, maybe I'd call it my pet peeve, and I can say this because I used to be the same way. If you asked what I did, it was anything and everything but sales. I wouldn't. I've always loved sales, but I didn't like the stigma around it.
Right.
And so people asked me what I did, I'd come up with any kind of name, but say I was a sales representative or sales leader. And so it kind of, now I've embraced it now, and I notice I'm not the only one who's had this issue. There's a lot of business owners that you talk to them and they say, oh, well, I don't sell anything, or we don't sell here. It's like, well, yeah, you do. If you've got a product or service, if you're in business, you're often selling people every day.
Yeah, I think it's very common in the trades. Like we see it all the time because guys are very comfortable, climbing ladders and swinging hammers, but they don't want to be, a salesperson as such. Otherwise, they would have gone and got a job at a car yard. It's kind of that sort of mindset. But I think like more and more the paradigm that we're seeing become evident is the fact that it's, like in today's marketplace, like that. I mean, maybe we're going to explore these dynamics a little bit further, but the old style of, like pushy sort of selling and, all that kind of stuff is kind of done and dusted. Like people's bullshit filters are way too strong for that kind of crap today. So, we just see sales today as an opportunity to present options and let people make their own decisions.
Yeah, that to me is sales. Hey, if you can help somebody discover what it is that they need, it makes it an easy decision for them whether or not they should move forward with you or not. And I believe you have a moral obligation, if you know your product or service will help someone, to help them see that, to help them realize that. And obviously there's tactics out there, kind of as you've alluded to in the past, that don't work or don't feel good for people. And I think, to your point, a lot of people, some of that sales training was taught 30, 40, 50 years ago. If you use it today, people pick up on it and can tell, oh, you're just trying to convince me. You're just trying to talk me into something. Sure.
I mean, it's like not even that far back, like we see it a lot with, from the agency space as well. Like there's that whole sort of Hormozy style big bold offers, guarantees, give away the farm, like that kind of bullshit, which just doesn't, I mean, it's just ridiculous, like it just doesn't work anymore. Like it worked for like 6 months and then everyone, it all fell apart. So I think what I'd love to sort of attack today is just maybe some simple frameworks around helping guys maybe overcome their, the mindset issues that they're battling in the space of how to sell properly. And if you don't want to use the word sell, then don't, but whatever, like at the end of the day, like you guys kind of have, whether you like it or not, as a trusted advisor in the trades, you have an opportunity and a responsibility to be providing people with the best possible solutions to the problems that they've called you for, by the way. Like, it's not like you're cold calling them and trying to sell them a new hot water heater. Like, they're calling you.
Right.
And I think once people sort of understand that, then it makes the sales process, considerably easier. And I think one thing as well, which we see this a lot in the agency space, because we deal with like businesses that, sell projects like bathroom renovations and kitchen renovations and, solar and roofing and things like that. And they don't have a very clear understanding of sales cycle. And that can be a little bit disheartening, especially when you mix long sales cycle with cold traffic, as opposed to when normally they're coming to us and they're used to referrals and word of mouth, which is this warm, fuzzy lead, which is just completely unrealistic when you're looking at scale. So, yeah, I'd love to unpack some processes and some systems and maybe some things that you guys have seen and teach that are getting good results.
Yeah, I'd love to dive into that. And I would say kind of, if my philosophy is, and my belief is, if you're not growing as a business, I categorize it all into one of two things. It's either a leadership issue or a systems and process issue. And so, hey, do I need to grow as a leader? Do I need to develop myself personally? Do I need to get better at sales? Or, for example, do we have a process issue? Is there something in our process that causes friction where things slow down? And sometimes that process is your sales cycle, right? What are we saying in the presentations? What does the process look like for someone to be onboarded and become a customer? And where does it become difficult for people? And how do we make that easier?
Yeah, I think for the better part, like most of the audience out there have never really had to understand like sales cycle and nurturing, and like, especially like, as I say, when you throw that into the mix with, lead generation and cold traffic and things like that, then there's these steps that need to be deployed in the right order in order to maximize conversions and maximize things like your ad spend and, maximize customer experience and all these kind of things, which are truthfully, they're not obvious. They're things that you kind of have to learn along the way. But that said, it is a system, and it's something that if you do follow it, like we see it working all the time, but it's just something different. And of course, with change comes resistance.
Right.
Anyway, all right. Well, let's jump on in. What do you want to talk about?
Well, we could dive into a lot of things, but one thing you said that resonates quite a bit, and I even have a resource I can share with your listeners, is how do you view yourself as a salesperson? So I think kind of mindset is where I like to start when it comes to sales training. In fact, I've had sales reps who've worked for me before where you almost can't like duplicate them. They don't have a system they follow. They don't have a process, but they believe so much in who they are, the value they bring, and the product or service that they offer that it almost trumps some of like what they're saying, how they're saying it, some of the technical side of sales. And so I really believe like it has to start there first. If you show up feeling anxiety, feeling pressure, my experience is that the customer often feels that too. And so if I'm coming in to a conversation feeling like, whether I'm selling, an AC unit or a solar system or electrical work, whatever it might be, if I feel hesitation, if I feel reservation, often they can feel some of that too. They may not recognize why they feel that or what that is. And I've noticed it, like if you don't do the work first to feel like, hey, I'm here to serve you and help you and ultimately help you make a decision that's going to bless your life. If you don't show up feeling that and believing that, and you feel like, hey, I'm pressuring people, I'm twisting arms, they're not going to like this, it's too expensive, like they will feel that and pick up on that.
Yeah, for sure. I think as well that's kind of like a pretty common example of, when somebody's trying to, like we see this all the time because it's what we do. Like when we like start running ads and things like that for businesses, then inevitably it will become too much for the business owner to handle all the sales. So we will deploy sales teams and that kind of stuff for them to handle conversations. But then, the understanding that the business, and this is something that I've struggled with myself over the years, where like I know I can make the right sale for the right person based on experience and so on and so forth. Where when you try to duplicate that with team members and they don't have that experience, they don't have that just like ground root understanding of the real outcome, then it takes a lot of training, it takes a lot of development to kind of get that get that education into your team and things like that to make it duplicatable. So you see it a lot in the trades.
Yeah, no, I think it's common for somebody in the trades to get into business because they love the work that they do. Maybe they started off working for somebody else or went to a trade school and then quickly realize, oh, I'm now wearing multiple hats in my business and I've got to sell, I've got to lead, I've got to do marketing. That's not an area I know well, but you got to do all these things that, hey, I didn't realize this was going to be such an important part of my business.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I guess the just tying back to what you were saying before, though, like these things are the thing about having processes deployed within your business is it gives you a framework on something that can be improved. And in most cases, when it's just you as the business owner that's doing the selling and stuff like that, you don't really have or need a defined process as such because you kind of know it and you just follow it regardless. Whereas the minute you start trying to train someone else on that without a process, you have nothing to develop. You've got nothing to optimize, nothing to improve, nothing to teach them and educate them and train them on. So you really do need to start considering what that looks like. And when we bring new businesses on board as clients, like we will deploy for them a sort of templated sales structure, which we know works. And then we say, let's customize this to suit your business. This doesn't have to be your model, but let's find your model within this sort of idealization. And that's normally like a good enough start to get the wheels moving for them and to help them sort of understand that, okay, well, these are the things that, I mean, in a lot of cases they'll just sort of have like an internalized monologue or framework or something that they will typically use, but it's sort of taking that IP, that intellectual knowledge and turning it into intellectual property, like documenting it and like enabling someone to follow it, which becomes really powerful.
Yeah, I love that. I've got a client I'm working with. He's actually not a contractor, but a small business owner. And it's like everything's up here. And that's great until you get that second, third, fourth person on the team.
Yeah.
And then they're coming to you for every single item. So yeah, I love that. Love that. It's all about, hey, what do we do? What are the steps? Writing those out. And then how do we optimize it and make it a process that can be repeated over and over and over again?
So what does that normally look like for you guys?
Yeah. So as far as helping build systems and processes, yeah. So I think part of before we even do that, usually where I like to start with a business is getting really clear on who you are, like what it is that you do, and then defining that. And a lot of times, like a business owner focuses a lot on their features and not their benefits. So like the feature might be,
a new hot water heater instead
right,
of
the new hot water heater that's more efficient, where the benefit is like, hey, this better water heater kicks on in seconds and you don't have to wait 2 minutes to jump in the shower before you start going. And so sometimes we get so focused on selling the features of our products that we actually don't define what the benefit is for the client, for the end user at the end of the day. So one, starting to talk through like, what is it we actually sell outside of a water heater? Or what is it we actually sell outside of electrical work or roofing or cabinets? Like, what is it that we're actually providing for the customer? And one, because once we start talking about benefits and we can help people get to the emotional side of it, then the features explain how we do it, how we get there. And so I'd say that's first, like getting clear on, hey, what is it that makes us unique? What is it we're actually selling people outside of the product or service itself?
Yeah.
And starting by defining that.
I've told this story a bunch of times on the show, but like this is a very common conversation for us because in the interest of creating relevant content for clients, we like to do that through things like case studies and storytelling and so on and so forth. And it's very common for business owners, regardless of vertical, to think that what they do is just boring and not interesting. And you sometimes have these polarized lenses over your face in the space of, well, like what I'm doing here is just like, because you do it every day, it's like you tend to think that your potential customers and audience are, have the same perspective on, the services that you deliver and the outcomes as a result of. And, I had one, a plumbing client in Sydney who we were just trying to pry information out so we could create some content on some projects that they'd done. They were actually very good at capturing like media. And this is another thing. A lot of businesses are very good at a lot of businesses take photos and videos and things like that, but mostly for the purpose of compliance. So they've kind of got like a fraction of the equation ticked, like the media can very much helps support content if it's presented the right way. But this business was, we'll say, what have you done this week that we can talk about? Nothing. We haven't done anything different, anything interesting. I'm like, well, what did you do yesterday? No, nothing. We just went and did like a block drain. I'm like, okay, where was it? They're like, it was in North Sydney. I'm like, whereabouts? They're like, down in like this place called sort of Milson's Point, which is like pretty much underneath the Harbour Bridge, right? Or literally underneath the Harbour Bridge. I'm like, oh, right, down near where the Prime Minister lives. They go, oh no, it was actually in the Prime Minister's house. And I'm like, okay, the heritage listed like house of the Prime Minister underneath the the Sydney Harbour Bridge on the world's most iconic harbour. So like the point is the mindset went from we just did a block drain to all of a sudden, we prevented sewer surcharging in the Prime Minister's home underneath Sydney Harbour Bridge down on the waterfront at the Prime Minister's home. It's the same thing, but it's just a different spin on it. And so anyway, the reason I bring that up is because I think sometimes it's polarizing when you need to sort of zoom out and look at the bigger picture on how you can actually present these things. And I think being able to communicate the outcomes, the benefits of the things that you actually do, and even the different types of solutions. So say, it's really common when you have, say, plumbers, for example, and they're presenting customers with 3 different options for a hot water heater or whatever, and you've got 1, 2, or 3. But what are the outcomes for both of them? Like, what do the guarantees look like for these products? What does the serviceability look like? What does the lifespan look like? But there's things there that you can, you should be communicating within that conversation with the customer so they understand the differences. It's not just like 1, 2, and 3 at different price points.
Yeah. It's, hey, we're offering you different solutions. Here's what you need. Here's some things you might be really excited about having. And here's how it would actually benefit you if we came in and did all of this.
And especially when you're talking about projects and, say bathroom renovations, there's always somebody that's going to come in and undercut you and do it for a fraction of the price. But helping the customer understand that, well, yeah, it's a lot cheaper because of these reasons. And this is why we don't compromise on price and we only offer this level of product for the following reasons. Like that is a conversation that will help you really identify customer avatar and make that conversation a lot easier in the space of addressing price when it comes down to quality.
Yeah, and my experience has been customers shop on price when they don't see the difference. If you're this exact same as your competitor, then why would I do anything other than go for the lower price, right? Where if, hey, you might be more expensive and we get way more value, we get a way better experience, we get way more benefits, then you can often sell at a higher price because you're offering more than that competitor can.
A colleague and a friend of mine, I was skiing with him many, many years ago, and we were talking about, he's a builder, and back then he was pretty much just doing renovations, sort of building projects, and we were on the chairlift, and he was telling me about how frustrated he was with the fact that, like, he would sit down with a potential customer, and then he would go away and he would prepare this scope of work, which would take him sometimes, 2 weeks to prepare, like with complete detail, with timeframes and all this kind of carry on, like, and then the client would then just take it, they'd give it to another builder and say, could you beat this by 5%? And the other builder's pretty much just got a step-by-step, guide on what they need to do on that job. And like we put together this sort of framework. We were like, you're not like what, because he was just saying, I'll give you the quote. And then the other builders was like, well, I'll just give you a quote too. It's that minus 5%. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. Like, you've done all this work. You've completed a complete project analysis. You've spent hours and hours and hours developing this thing. Like, why aren't you charging for it? And it sort of led us down this whole rabbit hole where we like start to developing these products, and you're not actually selling a quote. You're not charging for a quote anymore. You're the first part of your sales process is a project analysis, and it costs $2,000. And if you don't want to do it, that's okay. But if you do want to do it, then we'll deduct that off the price of your first invoice. And you can also give this to somebody else, and they'll have a full scope on what to do for this project if you don't want to use us. And that way you're sort of justifying your time, putting into it. And in most cases, that conversation, especially introducing a qualifier at the beginning of the conversation with price and a payment, like
Yeah.
I mean, like, truth be told, like if somebody's, if you're quoting a home renovation for $200,000, like in most cases, if they're not willing to spend $2,000 up front, they're sure as shit not going to spend $200,000 on a renovation, right? So it's a good disqualifier.
Yeah, I think I love that that example you gave too, because you're worth something too. And I think sometimes business owners, especially those in the trades, don't value that time enough. And it's like, hey, your time and your experience is so valuable. And sure, can they go get somebody off the street who may not be licensed to do it for cheaper? Sure, but there's a bunch of risks they run into with that. And no, I love that.
I think as well, like a lot of business owners fall into the trap of thinking that they have to do, like offer the free quotes and do all this kind of stuff because their competitors are doing it. And look, sometimes it's the case, I guess, but then like sometimes as well, like that point of difference and being able to offer as a point of difference the fact that, well, the first part of our process is our blah, blah, blah session, which is a small investment, but it just means that we can make sure that we're presenting you with the right the right products and solutions, blah, whatever it might be. But like that point of difference is sometimes like the uniquely defining thing that makes people think, oh, hang on, that these guys are actually willing to put the work in up front to make sure that we do have the right, spend the time initially. Like the good customers will appreciate that.
Yeah. And I think back to your point about kind of like, hey, you see the sales stuff where everybody's doing it. Like you've kind of mentioned, like the Alex Hormozy and the offers and that kind of stuff. It's what can you do that makes you unique and sets you apart? And when customers, we all run on scripts and things that are familiar to us. And when we start seeing something that's the same, that's been said the same way as the last guy, we start classifying things as the same. And so having things that can help differentiate you, so important. So love that, Matt. That's awesome.
Right. Well, let's unpack this a bit further. Like, what are some of the other things that you would put into like a sales sort of framework?
Yeah. So I think as far as a framework goes for your sales, I'm going to give you 3 steps, and then each of these steps can be broken down further. So I personally love the movie Inception. The kind of a sci-fi thriller. It's I don't know. I think it came out in 2014 or 2012.
They dream and they dream within the dream.
The dream within the dream within the dream. And I was always fascinated by the idea of that movie where it's like, hey, the idea is instead of going in and stealing someone's information from their dream, it's like, what if we could go in and plant an idea in their head where it was their idea from the very beginning? And so I've always kind of been fascinated by that movie and that idea. And hey, how can I influence someone? Because it's way more powerful at the end of the day when it's their idea than if I just tell them, hey, this is why you should do this. And so when I teach sales, I like to call it sales inception, and this idea that, hey, we're going on a process of discovery for you to find out what you need and that you've got to make a change. And so to break that down into three steps, it's what I call the kick, which in the movie, the kick wakes people up. So it's like, I've got to do something right off the bat to get their attention, right? Something that differentiates me, something that makes me different, but also along with that kick, like wake them up and help them feel free. So just as we were kind of talking about, one, I've got to show up with a good mindset. I've also got to make sure the customer doesn't feel the pressure that they normally feel going into a sales conversation. And so that can be really simple. It can be, hey, and some people will call this a frame or setting expectations or setting the table for the conversation. But I'm going to outline exactly what we're going to do today and what that's going to look like. And that I found creates a lot of ease in a prospect's mind, because it's kind of like you wouldn't get on a tour bus, Matt, on vacation if you didn't know where the tour bus was going, how long it was going to take, what was going to happen on the trip. It's like, hey, are we going to eat today? I don't know. Well, what's it going to cost? Well, we'll charge you at the end of it. Like, right. So I like to give them some expectations right off the bat. Like maybe something, I love the example you gave of charging for that initial consultation, but something that shows you're different. Hey, and sometimes it's as simple as saying, hey, appreciate your time today. What I want to do with you is help you decide if this makes sense or not. And the only thing we're going to decide today is whether or not we're going to have another conversation when we get done. Or if you're going to ask for the business, hey, and what we're going to decide is whether or not this makes financial sense to move forward. And if it does, we're going to ask you to get the project started. And so just kind of outline, hey, here's what we're going to do and here's what's going to happen, so that so you don't get to the close or get to the end and maybe get objections or concerns or fear or pushback because it's like, oh, you're asking me to start moving forward with the next step. It's like, yeah, we talked about that. We made an agreement early in the conversation.
So I think as well, like just to hijack that, if I can, like something that we see working very well is like throughout the different stages of the sales process is making sure that if nothing else, the number one thing that you nail is the discovery call. So when you have that initial conversation with somebody and you're triaging or you're, whatever it might be, you're having a conversation which helps the person on the other end of the phone understand this is exactly what's going to happen looking forward if we decide off the back of this call that we're the right fit for each other. And part of that conversation, and again, like respectful of the vertical in the industry, like in the reactive space, it's probably it's not often like there's less steps and it moves a lot quicker because people need things done quickly. But then with projects, it's okay within that to take the time and we encourage that like a lot. Just take the time in the discovery stage so that you're not doing things like traveling out to site for people that are not completely qualified and are completely comfortable with how your process looks and what's going to happen next. And so, we are just letting you know this is what's going to happen. If when we come out to site, Bob's going to go around. He's going to do his 20-point safety audit. He's going to measure up, just make sure we haven't missed anything that was obvious. We're going to give you a definitive quote. We're going to give you the opportunity right there and then to lock that quote in with a small payment, which we will deduct off your initial quote and enables us to get that job scheduled for you. Like whatever that is, like just letting people know. So when you get out on site, there's no surprises. And in most cases, it's a raving success.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you brought up discovery, because that's what I think the most important part of the sales process is doing some discovery. And like you said, sometimes in a reactive sale, you don't have to do as much of that because they are coming to you.
Yeah.
Right. And
you still want to know in discovery for that vertical, okay, well, where are you located? When do you need us out there? Like, are you comfortable with our call out fee? Like there's it's sort of a sped up version of the bigger picture.
Yeah, totally. And then I call it building the dream. So it's like, we're going to go through discovery. We're going to help them see what the future looks like working with us. And we're going to ask some questions. We're going to plant some seeds. We're going to qualify them. We're going to go through a process, and that's going to look different, like you said, based on the business, based on the vertical. But if I'm going to ask them a lot of questions, I'm going to let them know that too. Hey, I've got a lot of questions to ask you, not because I want to interrogate you, but because we want to make sure if we do this project for you that we hit all of these checkpoints along the way. And then it's crafting, okay, what are those things? What are those things that are really important we want to nail for this customer? And starting to ask them questions about, and I love what and how questions. How important is it? What have you thought about this, or what have you considered about this? A lot of times when, for example, I've got an electrical contractor I've worked with, and one thing that's really helped him sell higher ticket packages is just going in and asking them. They maybe have him come out to replace their electrical panel, and he realized they've got one switch instead of two light switches for the fan in the room. And like, hey, would it be nice to have that? Like, would you guys be interested in that? Just some like basic questions about things in their home that maybe he sees they don't have, or what. And he'll ask, hey, what's your experience with this? Or do you know anyone who has this feature in their home? And yeah, wouldn't it be nice to have this? And then he gives them those 2 or 3 different options, it's like, hey, he's built out some things because he's done some discovery to find out what might be important just past what they're currently calling them out for.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I think part of that discovery is kind of thinking through the consequences. I think that's something a lot of times in sales and business owners we skip through. We just get so quick to, hey, what do you need? And here's the quote, that we don't talk about sometimes what happens if you don't move forward, what happens if you go with another contractor. And I think sometimes we're afraid to like ask the client that and let them talk about it, because we don't want them to say something that would be opposite of what we want them to. And I found it's really powerful to let a client talk about, hey, what's the problem that happens if I wait? Yeah, like, because I mean, that's probably one of the most common objections we get? Like, hey, I want to think about this, right? And usually there's things underneath that to unpack when someone says that. And hey, if they have a problem in their home, like thinking about it could be actually the worst thing that they do, waiting or delaying. And so I like to bring those things up. Hey, like, what happens if we don't make a decision, or what happens? Yeah, if you need to beat with 3 other contractors, or what happens if you choose the wrong contractor? What happens if you go with a lower price and you don't get what you want? Then what are you going to do? And just going through some of those scenarios so they can start building out this dream of either what they want or the nightmare scenario if they don't make the right choice, so we can help kind of guide them towards working with us.
Is that, I mean, I'd love to sort of unpack that bit further, how you would practically present that without sort of sounding cheesy and blowing your own trumpet.
Yeah. I think some good questions would be to start with some questions that would be around context. For example, a good contextual question is, hey, what do you understand about? And then you could insert your industry or what you do, just to kind of see what they understand about it. What's your experience with this? Then maybe asking like, okay, how important would it be for you to have X, Y, or Z, right? And you pick whatever it is your solution is going to be. And then these questions, these next 2 questions, I really love. How certain are you? Hey, maybe you ask them, hey, what's most important to you, or what's your experience been working with a contractor? And they say, well, I'm mostly concerned about just getting the best price at the end of the day. Well, hey, how certain are you that the best price is actually going to be the best option for you? And I like that question, how certain, because it'll create some doubt, and it gets them to kind of think through, well, I think the lowest price is going to be the best for me. And then a way to suggest something different without coming off too blunt could be, could it be possible? How would you feel? Imagine if, and using a statement like that to like kind of paint a different picture, especially if they're saying they want something and you're like, oh, what you want is actually not good for you, without just saying, hey, you're an idiot. Let's do it different. Hey, how certain are you? Could it be possible? How would you feel about, just imagine if, can be some good ways to reframe kind of the way they're thinking through something.
Yeah, I think as well as part of that conversation, we've seen it work pretty well when you can help people identify, like if they're price driven, for example, let me explain to you what a $20,000 bathroom would look like, which is not obvious, as opposed to what we're proposing and what we actually do in terms of quality. And I'll just break that down for you. If it's still important that you're focused on price, then so be it. We're not the right fit for you. But if you do want something that's going to tick the boxes that we're about to discuss, then let's continue the conversation. Because I think, like, in most cases, there's not an apples for apples conversation going on. And people don't understand that. They've got friends that have had, their bathroom renovated for 20 grand, and they think that all bathroom renovations cost 20 grand. And you're like, well, this is what a 20 grand bathroom renovation would look like if we were to do it. These are the products we'd have to use, and this is the guarantees that you'd get, and these are the issues. Well, this is why we don't do it.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think when you can help break down a lot of times what people say they want, it's important for you to find the context behind that too. Like, oh, well, hey, we wanted to get the bathroom done for 20 grand. Oh, 20 grand. Like, tell me where you came up with that number. Oh, well, we've got a friend that did their bathroom for 20 grand. Okay. Do you know what kind of cabinets they use? What type of countertops?
What a proofing.
Yeah. And then that allows you to get into that conversation. Love that.
And again, I just think it's really important that you guys out there really identify from the onset, like if they're price driven or quality driven. Look, again, depending on how your business is set up, like if you are a business that does compete on price a lot and that's kind of your model, then so be it. But it's still important to sort of understand those questions in the discovery phase, because if it's someone that's got like a completely unrealistic budget on what you do, that might be the end of that opportunity right there and then, but it doesn't necessarily mean that contact, if you do the next few things, which I'll discuss, won't eventually come back to you. And the next things, there's obviously a huge level of ignorance there with that customer. They don't understand a lot of things, which is an opportunity for you to teach them. So if you, as part of your nurture sequence, you can educate them about the things, the dynamics that they've discussed in the conversation, which they clearly do not understand. And most of those things are in line with price, time frame, so on, guarantees, warranties, so on and so forth. Like, then while you're educating them, you're also positioning yourself as a trusted advisor, and you're investing in them, you're leveraging content on things that you, without question, know back to front, but you just probably don't have a good enough process around communicating it.
Yeah. One thing I've loved telling clients is, especially when I'm doing a sales presentation or a quote, like, hey, even if you don't work with me, here's the things I want you to look out for. Like, here's the things you need to be aware of, whether or not you work with our business and our company. And I think sometimes like maybe pulling back the curtain for them, so to speak, and helping them see like what's important, what they need to look for. I've had times where go ahead.
One of those things, and if you guys are an established business, communicate that, because like the worst case scenario, somebody goes and gets their solar system installed, and then the business they've used goes out of business in 2 months' time, and then they have no support, no guarantees, no warranties, nothing. There's nothing else there. Like, they're on their own kind of thing. Like, you want to be able to, present the fact that, no, if there's a problems, we're going to fix it. And we've been around for 15 years and we're not going anywhere. And we've got a, very, very good reputation. Just go look at our reviews. And, like that kind of thing it also gives people peace of mind. And it justifies the reasons why they'd be willing to, spend a little bit more to have that security.
Yeah. And I've had times where I've told people, hey, I don't think we're going to be the best fit for you, and here's a recommendation, or here's somebody else I'd refer you to. And what's funny is sometimes I've done that, and then all of a sudden they're wanting to work with you even more, because it just creates trust, or they send you referrals because, hey, yeah, you actually took the time to help me. And I think sometimes it's good to say, hey, no, you aren't a good fit. Like, we've done some discovery, what you're looking for, you're going to be obviously you may not say this to a customer, but you'd be a problem for us, or you'd be somebody that we don't want to work with. And here's something better suited for you.
I mean, truth be told, like, that's a conversation that we, like, within our agency, we have more often than not. Like, I reckon maybe 3 out of 10 we might work with. because they're just genuinely not the right fit. It doesn't mean that they're bad people or their business is no good. It just means that like what we do as an agency isn't going to suit what they're after as a result. And so like that's a really common conversation. And I think as well, like once we start getting momentum with clients, it's conversations they start having. It's a luxury that sort of comes with volume to a degree. Like in the early stage, people are like, we'll just take anything we can get because we want to feed, we need to feed ourselves. But then after a while, when you get bigger and bigger and bigger, like you can kind of be a bit more picky and choosy with these things. And this is where I think like these processes evolve into, deep diving into avatars and deep diving into niches within verticals and like all these kind of, directions which take fold as a result of momentum.
Yeah, and I think early on, you sometimes as a new business owner, it's like you kind of want to just take anything you can get. And I think there's just so much wisdom as time goes on to be really clear on this is who we serve, this is our client, this is who we help at the end of the day, and this is the experience they're going to have because they fit these boxes.
I'd love to sort of unpack a little bit the whole conversation around like customer avatars and personas and that kind of thing, because like when we're dealing with clients, bringing people on board, like when we ask them the question like who's your perfect customer, so often we get that feedback where it's like, well, we want to deal with premium clients. And I always say to them, listen, you can't market premium clients. Like you can't say to someone, sorry, you're not a premium client. You're not the right fit for us. Like there's, what they're trying to say is we want to market to people that have the budget and are willing to spend the money. We want to, or higher ticket. We only work with higher ticket. Like what is higher ticket? People don't understand these things, right? So I'd love to sort of dive maybe a little bit into, defining avatars and, what that actually looks like in ways that is communicatable so that you're not like just saying things that don't really make any sense.
Yeah, I guess, right. Saying we only work with higher ticket clients. Like, what does that actually, what does that mean? So I think part of it's,
we've seen people like clients have that on their website. We only do high ticket electrical work. I'm like, what is that? Like it's like it's so condescending to somebody that like you don't work for. Like, sorry, you're not high ticket, or whatever. Like, what does that actually mean? Doesn't it's terrible.
Yeah, and I think there's an internal language and an external language too that you have, right? Like there's internally, we might say high ticket, and externally, we're going to define that as something else. So I think it starts with what's the demographic we're looking for, what's their income look like? Obviously, you're not going to advertise on your website either. We only work with people that make $200,000 a year or more. And it'd be great to know, hey, what are the zip codes? What's the home look like? What's the value? What's the size? What's the typical range of money? And then start speaking to what's the psychographics? Like, what are they experiencing? What are they going through? What are the pain points for our ideal customers? What are the negative experiences they're having that we can solve efficiently and effectively? And I kind of love this idea. And this is more on the marketing side, which isn't like I said, my area of expertise. But like, what's the pain? Like, can we speak to the common pain for these people and speak more about that than speak about this list of like what our ideal customer looks like? And so you start with that, but then you talk about, okay, here, what's the emotions, what's the things they're experiencing, and how do we speak to that and not talk just about the features of the product or service that we offer?
So from the perspective of marketing, the way that we see very effective of making sure that you do have conversations with the right people is talking about the type of projects that you've done and the type of jobs that you do, who you do them for, where you do them, how you do them, type of typical price points, things like that within content or even ad copy or whatever it might be, so that when that individual reads it, they're like, oh, okay, well, this sounds exactly like us, or this sounds nothing like us. Let's not take the next step. Right. Either way, it's a win-win.
Yeah, it either is going to bring them to you or drive them away, right?
Exactly. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with disqualifying. And in fact, it's like, I think one of the biggest opportunities for you guys to improve your conversions is by improving and increasing the amount of disqualifications that you have, like in the early stages in discovery, because essentially again, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're for life going to be a bad contact. Like keeping in mind, again, one of the other things that is like typically not obvious, especially in the reactive space, is lifetime value. You know, like if you have a reactive service, like you don't think for a second that just the one block train that you do for that individual should be the only thing that you ever do for them. So if you have a good mindset and a good strategy around lifetime value, like being able to communicate with them regularly about things that are relevant and helping them better understand some of these dynamics, which they clearly don't, is often the next step in them becoming a recurring customer.
Yeah. As you were talking, the thought that came to mind, Matt, was if I'm trying to talk to everybody, I'm actually talking to nobody.
Exactly.
And it's a mistake that's made often where we think we're going to get everybody to walk in the door, and it's really confusing to people when you don't speak to that like direct person you're saying. And I'll give you an example of this. I actually was on a sales call with somebody trying to sell an AI tool to me about a month ago, and honestly, it's really cool technology. But he jumped on, and I couldn't tell if, hey, am I buying this for me? Am I trying to sell this to my clients? Like all he did was just list everything this thing could do, this tool could do, an incredible tool. And it probably would be a good thing for my business, but he didn't do any discovery. Didn't ask me any questions about what I was looking for. He didn't ask me anything about the clients I work with. And so I kind of got off the call. Like, I don't even know where to go next. Cause I don't know if this is like really for me or for my clients or for both of us. Like, and it was just interesting because it was like he spent the whole time just telling me everything they could do and didn't take a minute to ask me. And if he just spent 5 minutes asking me, okay, Drew, tell me about your process. Tell me about what's working. Tell me what isn't working. Tell me, what are the things that are going well with your clients? What are the things that aren't going well? If he'd spent 5 or 10 minutes on that, I might have very well signed up that day, but he just spent all his time telling me, about everything it could do. And I just felt like, I don't know if this is for me or not.
Yeah. No. And again, it's a really common, and the other thing sort of piggybacking off that sort of conversation is the fact that in a lot of cases, your customers will typically come to you asking for a certain thing, not understanding completely that is not the thing that's going to get them the result they want. For example, if somebody comes to you and they're like, look, we need to get our hot water replaced. If you don't ask more questions around that, inevitably you can go and replace their hot water system and it won't solve the problem that they don't have enough hot water all the time. Like there's little things like that, which if you don't ask questions, you'll end up inevitably doing what they've asked you to do, but it's not going to result in the outcome they're looking for. Therefore, they're not going to be happy. And, we fell into that trap so often where people come to say, oh, we want to get a website. We go, cool, no worries. Let's build your website. So we would do it. We'd give them a website. They're like, how's it all going? Oh, terrible. The phone hasn't rung at all. We're like, well, so what they really wanted was marketing and lead generation, but what they really got was a website because they asked for it, so like we've learned, over the years just to really, and this is why we have these discovery sessions now where we unpack these, we call it our impact roadmap, but we like really design what is the outcome and what are the milestones to get to that outcome. And that is just like, it's a game-changing conversation. And we teach our clients to do the same thing with like their services. It's like, just have the discovery conversation so you can really figure out what do they actually want. Like nobody wants to get solar. Like that is not the goal. The goal is not the panels on my roof and the battery in the garage. Like the goal is I want to reduce my energy bills, or the goal is I don't want to be dependent on grid power when the power goes out and then it's electrical storm. Like these are the things that you need to, like really start talking about.
Yeah. So good. We could probably spend an hour just on this topic, Matt.
Well, I guess the thing is, right, the point is, and this is where you guys as trusted advisors out there, you need to zoom out a little bit and understand that these things are not obvious to other people, and people don't have the same level of understanding about what you do in terms of, sure, the technical stuff, which is important, but they don't really give a shit about that. Like they're not so much interested in how many kilowatts your solar system is. Like they want to know, like, okay, well, how much will a certain system be able to reduce our energy bills by, or whatever it might be. Like you got to speak their language to them. I always say, make your content pass the mum test. Like if you can give this to your mum and she can get it, no offense, mum, if you're watching, like then that's normally a good start, because it's really common and really easy for us to go into like geek speak about our service and our product because we just know so much about it. Well, this is these are the size joists you need up there, and this is the distance you need between your battens, and like people are like, what? Just I want a fucking roof put on, man. Like,
Yeah.
speak their language, right? So just dull it down and speak to the outcomes and speak to the things that are important. And some of those things, like are going to be the difference between a mid-tier and a high-tier product. It might be things like guarantees and warranties and like, things that you are essentially out of your control, but important in the greater picture if the client does, if that is important to them, so you've just got to have those conversations.
Yeah, Matt, it'd be like if I went into the doctor and said, "Hey, I need painkiller.
Yeah,
Just give it to me." Yeah, just give me the painkiller, and I don't let the doctor ask any. Like a doctor would be committing malpractice if he just wrote a prescription without
true.
asking me some questions and asking what I'm experiencing and diagnosing whether what I'm talking about is a symptom or it's actually the problem. And oftentimes, like the customer's telling us about their symptoms, and it's just a symptom. There's actually often a greater problem that's got to be solved. And if we don't ask any questions, do some proper discovery, it's like then we sell them something for the symptom, and the main problem's still there.
And the other thing as well, which I think a lot of businesses probably could like deploy process around doing better, is having like if you do go out, I mean, especially in the reactive space, like if I'm calling because my drain's been blocked or the hot water heater's gone out or whatever it might be, fine, that's cool. But like just keep in mind, like if they're paying a service fee for you to go out there, which in a lot of cases they are, you're sending a technician out there. They're normally on like an hourly kind of clock or something along those lines. Perhaps it's project based, quoted, whatever it is. But just keep in mind as well, like if you guys don't put a bit of time and effort into, checking the overall system. And a prime example would be like, look, let's check flexi hoses for the plumbing, or let's check the toilet, the systems, the inlet, the outlet valve, things like that to see if they're in good condition. Like it's a lot cheaper for you and them for you to, if there is a problem there, to replace it while you're there, than have to come back and do it again in 3 months' time. So there's things that you can do there which can really be to the benefit of everybody, provided that you have the conversation. But you need to apply the time and actually do the work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, obviously some of these things are going to vary by the business, by the trade, by the situation. And it's if you can solve it all in one shot, that's the best way to do it.
Anyway, look, I agree with you. We could talk for days on this, but in the interest of time, we should probably get to wrapping it up. So, Drew, where's the best place for people to get hold of you guys?
Yeah, you can find me at the everydaysalesleader.com or on social media, the Everyday Sales Leader. And I've got resources on my website. And like I said, I'm not difficult to find if you look for me on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn. So
fantastic. All right, that's great. Well, mate, thank you for the conversation. It's been good. I hope like this has sparked a bit of a ignition in you guys out there for thought process around what you could be doing better from the point of sales. I would just like to say, I suppose, essentially, just have something, like just start with if anything, discovery. Like just make sure you're asking the right question to discovery. Don't be in a hurry to get out to site. Be in a hurry to make sure that you triage the customer the best possible way, so that when you do get out on site, your chances of closing that job are considerably higher. And that's really the whole focus around here. It's like, how do we just preserve everybody's time in this entire, conversation, so that we're not wasting time traveling and driving out to, customers with the hope that our technician is going to sell them into something. Like you should be able to figure that out over the phone.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, sir. Much appreciate your time, and look forward to collaborating in the future. I guess we can wrap this one up. Hey guys and girls, how would you like all of the value adds left behind from our podcast guest all put together in the one spot? We've pulled every tool together, every template, every resource shared on the show, and we've packed them all into the Tradie Academy. It's free to join and it's built by the team behind the site shed and tradiewebguys. Inside, you'll get marketing tips, business tools, and first access to future resources, all in one simple dashboard. Just head across to tradie.wiki/pod. That's tradie.wiki/pod. The link's in the episode description. And once again, you just log in once and then you're all set. And if you want to get notified of upcoming episodes, hit subscribe or follow.